Hello, I'm Michael Redmond, professional Night Dango player. In this video, I'll be looking at the third game of the Kamakura Jubango. So there will be links to my videos about the first two games of this match. The Kamakura Jubango was a 10-game match played between Seigen and Kitani Minoru. And it was played in the Kamakura area, which is it was one of the ancient capitals, so it's a tourist location. There's a lot of temples and shrines and a giant Buddha. I think it was a convenient place for them to play most of the matches because I think the temples were locations for the games that they played. The board position shows White playing an unusual move here, and I'm going to be talking about what White's ideas were with this move. Seigen and Kitani were both established as probably the two most famous players at this time. They had already done the Shinfuseki thing, the new opening, which they introduced in 1933. And the basic idea of the Shinfuseki was to play star points, or sometimes 3 points, and finish the corners with one move for the time being, and quickly move towards the sides and the centers. And especially this was how Seigen used the idea. Kitani played some high openings also. He was interested in the center. So he played things like the 5-5 point, 2-5-5 points, and connecting them with a stone on the side, looking like a Sanensei on the 5th line. And he experimented with that kind of thing. But at this time, he's back to playing star points and komoku, 3-4 points. Seigen, at the time of this game, he was usually matching his opponents when he played White, so you can see both sides have played a star point and a 3-4 point in this opening. And when Seigen had Black, he generally played Ninensei, he played star points. So it's already looking somewhat like a modern opening, but they did something unusual in the top right here. Something about these players, the two players here, they try completely new ideas and they somehow make them work. So that's the fun things about their games. Okay, back to the start of the game. So it's Go Theory. You play open corners, then you play the Shimaris or Akakari. And at the time they were still playing sides. So this was a point where if you are a modern player using computers, you would be thinking about Black playing a peep here maybe, or playing the attachment and a double hane in the corner. These would be more modern ideas. At the time, they played the sides. So when Black plays the side here, Black has a Shimari in the lower left corner. And we say this is pointing to the top side. So we say it's pointing in this direction. And that's why Black is building there. So when Black gets a stone on the 5th line here, and say the whole area becomes a Black area, you can see how it's sort of making a borderline. So Black's making a square shape where Black has surrounded the whole lower left area. And that's why the Shimari, Black's corner enclosure in the lower left, is sort of working well with this whole pattern. In the case that White invades, the Shimari also works as a wall to sort of enclose that White stone. So it becomes difficult for White to escape. And so it's adding to the attack, which it's more effective than it was if it was pointing in the other direction. So in both ways, the Shimari is controlling the left side. That's why Black started by building on the left side. But it's also, if Black gets to extend to the bottom side like this, then it will be a double-winged formation, which can easily spread out into the center. So this is also an idea that if Black gets both sides of a corner enclosure, it's a big thing. So White played here. So it's Go Theory of the time to play an extension on the side. When your opponent has controlled the left side, White moves to the lower side. Now White has a Shimari which is pointing to the left. So White's Shimari works similarly to Black's one in that it's high towards the left. And so White gets to add moves like this and eventually surrounds the whole area. It's an efficient way to make an outside boundary using these two stones, the outside stones of the corner enclosure, to make a kind of a boundary it's on the 6th line here. And so it became important for black to take the right side. So you can see how they're avoiding their opponents getting a double wing formation in this opening. So at this point, it would have been normal. At the time, it would have been normal to play an outside kakari. So Go theory suggests that you should play a kakari from the wide side, which is the top side in this case. And so old school, you might say. In my era, we would be thinking of playing a kakari here. I'd say modern players would think of playing the sansan. This came only after we had AIs, though. So at the time, it was probably considered a very bad idea. In the game, white plays here, so this is completely different. And he actually makes it work to a certain degree. So white is thinking of building a moyo in the lower right, and he's going to start with this stone and use it as a kind of a sacrifice. So black answered here, this is natural. And here it would be the natural idea to try to save this stone. So it would be this move maybe, and black would push. You could get a fight something like this. And locally white would be a bit cramped, and black would be escaping out to the right side. So it would be easy for black to be playing, for instance, moves like this or something, where white's area in the lower right is actually shrinking because black is forming a group there. So this sort of goes against the game plan that white had, and he didn't want to do it that way. So in the game when white plays here, if black pulls back, so if black does something like this, then white is going to get a better shape locally. So this is white's sort of leaning on black now. White has a lot more room than in the variation here, where black was pushing white around a little bit. So in this variation, black is getting more space on the right side. If white gets to do this, black would be a bit more cramped on the right, and white would have more room. It would be more feasible for white to be moving to this big point on the top side. So black plays the strong move. The local strong move is to play a hane here, splitting the two white stones, and white switches to the right side. So this was according to plan. For the time being, white's position here is stable enough. So white's creating some territory also, but more importantly, he eventually has the idea of a whole area in the lower right, which white wants to control. So that's the next step. White played here. And locally, this is an overplay. So as far as the top side is concerned, it's an overextension. And the safe move would maybe even here. This would be a very safe extension. Or white could consider playing one more space here, which would leave an invasion at h17, but it would be linked to white's position in the top left. So this would also be an option. But he goes all the way here. So this is locally it's an overplay, and black invades. But this stone that white has at m16, it's going to link directly to what white's going to try to do in the top right corner. So white plays here, and black played here. So this sort of changes the story. So I want to talk about what happens if black plays on this side, which would be the strongest attack. When black does this, white has two choices. So if white really wants to save the stone at q14, which probably is not the case, but if white wants to do that, white would play here. So this would establish a base for white to jump out at o14. So in this variation, white does get to jump out. The two stones on the q line, on the fourth line there, they're making a base from which white can jump out at 8. The problem with this is that it's very cramped. So black stone at j16 was a ladder breaking move there. So that would prevent white from pushing through here. And without that stone at j16, this would have been a ladder. So it's functioning there. And white has a very cramped shape. So I'm not sure that white would die. White does have a potential eye there at s13. So there's the potential eye on the right side. White can probably managed to survive, but it's very cramped, and I would feel uncomfortable playing this way with white. So I'm going to suggest the other variation, where white pulls back, and if black goes down in the corner, then white can jump out. In this case, the weakness that black has here allows white to connect out towards the top side. So black's probably going to connect here. And in this case, white can't jump because it gets cut off. So the connection is not established when white doesn't have that stone at Q15. And it's probably better for white to jump out in a nice move. And the idea will be different this time. So in this case, white's going to curl around, making Miai of surrounding from the center and playing at P15. So if black pushes through here, white can play here. And this is where the stone at M16 comes in play, because if black escapes, white is making a double threat. So white is threatening a net in the center or pushing through at P16. So if black plays here, white gets to push through. This will either capture the corner or it will capture black's stone at O16. Or if black plays on this side, this is a net. And looks like white's okay here. Black doesn't have a good way to reduce white's liberties on the right. So that's how it was working. Maybe black's going to capture instead of playing at 9. So maybe here. This would capture. If white connects, black can push out on the side. In this case, white would play here, something like this. So the general idea is something like white might add another stone in the center, maybe here. This is the general idea. So this was white's game plan. White needed that stone M16 in order to make some of those variations work. So that's why he has that stone at M16. In itself, sometimes it becomes a wasted stone, but it's useful in that it's making this variation on the right side function. So that was the idea. And I would assume this was his game plan, and they probably both read that out, calculated it, and they turned it into a completely different variation when black played here. So black played there, white is now going to live in the corner. And here again it branches. So in the game, black played here, and it looks like a comfortable life for white in the corner, and black got a very solid shape. The other way that black could have played would be to play here. And white's a bit cramped here. White will slide, and this threatens to play at Q18. So if white extends here, black can play here and cut off the stones in the corner. So when I say it's cut off, I mean that black wins this race to capture. And for the time being, connecting underneath here is going to be bad. Even if white manages to survive, it's not going to be a good result. So white's probably going to not play that, but to cut. And this creates a forcing move at Q17 and makes a threat to extend at O18. So black's going to cover here. This is actually alive as it stands. So in this variation, black will probably add a stone here. Black gets a great shape on the outside. But white's corner is pretty much alive. It's a seki or something, even if white leaves it. So with the hane here, this is going to be a seki or something. So that hane is functioning to stop black from killing this way. Usually black would have a connection on the first line at T16, but with the hane that white played at 12, that's gone. So that's why this is kind of a seki-like shape. So if black plays in the corner, well, for instance, something like this. This is going to be a seki. It's not. There's too much room for black to make it into a dead shape there. Okay, but black just covered here, and they got into this variation. So he liked this solid shape better, I suppose. And white invades here. So this is the second kind of plan that white started. There's this stone here, which is not completely dead yet. But the question is, does white really want to save that stone when black has such a strong position on the right? So when it's so close to black's strong position here, white can spend a lot of moves trying to save it, and it would just be running out with no threat against the black group because the black group is so strong. So white is thinking with the idea of sacrificing that stone and maybe switching to the left side. Or if black fights on the left side, which is the game variation, then white can sort of split the top side from the left side and make a kind of a double attack. So that's the general idea here. And here we see how it's working. So it's working in a way in which white is splitting through the position on the top side and the position on the left side and making kind of a double threat. Basically, the idea is to sacrifice that stone at M16. Okay, so there's a shape thing here that I want to talk about. This is called the hane on top of two stones. So the hane at the head of two stones is supposed to be a good shape move, and it's usually combined with putting these two stones in damezumari. So for instance, if white gets to play a hane on both sides, this is a position where the damezumari is really evident, you might say. It becomes more evident when white has filled both of these points and the two black stones are in damezumari, or a shortage of liberties, as we say. So this is how it works ideally. In actual play, black would probably play down here, and then white would get to play something like this. And this would be relatively even. White's stone at M16 was wasted after all, but white did get a big corner in the top right, and white has an attack on the left side. So these two black stones, they're not going to die outright. And the question is how black is going to deal with that. So black could have ideas of playing this, looking at the 3-3 point in the corner, and a connection on the second line at B12. That would be one idea. Or black could find ways to sacrifice these two stones. It's hard to say how this is going to turn out. Black does have some territory on the top side to start with, and I'd say it's close enough to even. So in the game, black curls around here. So this is getting rid of that weakness of the hane on top of two stones. And as far as shape is concerned, it's an important point. And black jumps here. So this is typical of Kitani in that he's playing very solidly. He likes to have his territories very solid because he was a player who was very good at invading his opponent's areas. And so he wasn't minding that his area got squished a little bit. It's flattened a bit, but it's very solid. So he liked to invade and he liked to create ko's and stuff. He loved to play ko's, it seems. And he played these ko's inside his opponent's areas. And in order for that to work, he didn't want to leave bad aji or ko threats. So what I'm saying here is that his other option was to play a hane here. And this might have been the better move. He actually commented after the game that he spent a lot of time considering this move. White can cut here, and it leads to a rather complicated variation. Looks like black is okay with actually jumping here. So this is looking at E17, the peep in the corner, or some kind of a connection to the right. Maybe black can even try to capture that cutting stone at 2. So one variation would be this one, where black is threatening to capture with a stone here, or to connect up to the right, jumping or play here sometimes. And so the group on the top is going to be okay, and white's group on the top side, it has a lot of work to actually escape. So white might sacrifice it anyway. White would still be thinking of surrounding the left side. In this case, black's Atari at 3 is a very effective move that has given white bad shape in that local area. So going back a few moves, white might even just extend here, in which case black would get a better territory. This is more territory for black on the top side. And again, I'd say it's not really the variation Kitani would take, because now there's going to be some ko threats on the top side. So in the game, he's taken a smaller territory, but there are no ko threats. So sort of his style, I would say. And white takes away the invasion at the 3-3 point in the top left corner. So at this point, it becomes difficult for black to save the two stones, and he's going to sacrifice them with this move. So this is kind of a shape move. It would also be good shape to play here. This would be the more intuitive move. With this move, if white attaches here, black will wedge, slipped in a peep there, but black will wedge here and cut off that white stone. So this is the idea here. Otherwise, white can split the stone off by playing here, but this is lousy shape. It's the famous empty triangle, which is it's a bad shape. And in this case, black will have to move out in the center, maybe something like this. And this group will escape out into the center. So White does have bad shape with that stone at 1, making this shape here is what we call the empty triangle, and it's an example of bad shape. Okay, so white played here, and black is threatening to cut at e13, and so they made this trade. So white has captured the 2 black stones. Black does have this endgame move here, where black is threatening to connect up at e18. This is a big point. This was forcing, and black plays here. So I'd say this was maybe the big mistake that black played in this game, because it's not forcing right now. So black should have played here. This is a really big move. And he can still invade the lower right. So 5 is one of the ways that black can invade. Other points would be, for instance, this move would be a shape sometimes, attaching here. I think attaching here and attaching here. This was what I was seeing as the suggested variation with Katago. In any case, the top right, the top left that is, was a really big move as far as territories was concerned. In the game, this is big, not only because it surrounds the top left corner, but it makes a difference to black's territory on the top side. So white immediately played here, black cut. So the idea was that if black plays here, white's going to squeeze like this, and it's going to reduce the top side. So significantly big. In the game, black just cut here. So the idea with this is to take sente. So by sacrificing the 2 stones, black gets sente and also gets to cut in the center. So he lost some territory towards the top side, but was able to make this cut. And this is how the game continued. It looks like black feels satisfied when he plays this move. The more natural move, the intuitive move, would be to play here and surround on a larger scale. When he surrounds on a small scale, I get the impression that Kitani felt that he had an advantage here. These games were played with no komi, and they were alternating between black and white. So the player with black does have an advantage to start with, a starting advantage, and at this point he seemed to feel comfortable with the game. Black is ahead. I found it interesting that the suggested move for white, when I looked at it with Katago, was to play here. And I found this convincing, because if black plays on the right, this is going to create some extra aji. So black is probably going to play the tari here. This gives black it gives white a tempo, it gives white sente to play the big move at 5. So this is an important point which reduces black's potential in the center at the same time as expanding white's potential in the lower right. So it's a very important point. And although that was great shape for black in the center, and it was kind of a painful exchange for white, it gave white sente. So that was important enough when white has this huge move at 5 to play. So I think this was a better idea. White did need to do something to stop black from saving these stones. So if black plays here, the white group is endangered. So that's why white needs another stone there. And that's why this would be a way to solve that problem, by putting the stone in Atari with the white stone at 3. So white added a move there, and black played here, and now is still building the center. So this all makes sense. Okay, so this is a middle game tactic idea, and this is one of the points where black can attack white's corner enclosure in the lower right corner. So the idea is that if white plays something like this, black's going to play the 3-3 point, and these 2 black stones are cooperating in a way. So one of the ways they cooperate is that if white extends here, black has a forcing hanetsugi here and can slide in the corner. So this would be a way for black to live in the corner. Sometimes white will try something stronger like this. This gets a bit more complicated, but black has various ways to try. Black could play here, for instance, and then cut here. So this would create a completely different variation, but it's a lot of trouble for white, to be frank. So this is the idea here, where black is looking at that attachment at R3, the attachment in the 3-3 point in the corner. So white answered from the corner. And black plays here. So black's going back to focusing on the center. Black's not so serious about that stone at O3. He's more interested in surrounding the center. So I understand that. I found it interesting that this was still a vital point. So, for instance, in a position like this, sometimes you see this move being played. To get some forcing moves, white would usually answer here to get a kind of a shape there, and then black would continue somewhere towards the side. So there's this idea where black can play some forcing moves from above. But it was interesting to see it suggested after white has played here. After this exchange, I don't think I've seen this, but it's actually pretty effective because black's still threatening r5, and if white answers here, black can still do this, and now black is still threatening, for instance, q2, and an extension to the side would create a living shape. And so black gets some extra space there with a potential, maybe a net at o5, or sometimes black can capture the white stone with p5. So this would be an idea. Something like this. Black could have done that. So it's a good move to remember, the move at 1 here at q5. It's still a shape, even after white has defended here. Okay, so the center is still a big issue, and black is finishing that territory there, and he still has ideas to do something with that stone at o3. So we're going to be seeing how that turns out. But white plays here. So when white does this, this is starting a big fight in the center. Black didn't want to allow white to get a bamboo joint sticking out into black's territory. So that's the first thing. And by starting here, black's probably going to lose these two stones. But they do create a hane here on the second line. So this would be a move where black can get most of his profit back by playing a big endgame move, making use of those two stones. And black is making a position in the center. So white cut here, and this starts the fight, also the decisive fight of the game. And here, yes. So this is where it gets really exciting. White plays here. So this is another point where I think I have a lot of explaining to do. First of all, playing here immediately, black will extend here. And the semei, the race to capture, is very difficult for white. One basic reason that it's difficult is that if white tries anything in the center now, moves like this, they don't work anymore because black has this snapback thing. And so black can counter with the wedge at 4. So white has to try the move at 3 earlier before he plays the 1 and 2 exchange, because after that, it's just not functioning. So for instance, white could have tried it with this move. So in this case, if black plays here, it's better for white not to have that exchange of these two stones. So a white stone here and a black stone here would be putting white's group in the center into more danger. In this case, white can attack black's position in the center. So it would be something like this. Just one example. So in this case, white would have the time to attack these stones first, and then finally connect up to the bottom side. White would lose the territory on the bottom side, but black would be losing the territory in the center. So white's connection in the center is not 100%. There's still the forcing move here, and sometimes a cut here, but there's a ko here also. So they're going to be fighting that kind of thing. So this would be close enough to even. Black does seem to have a small advantage with a no-komi game. In the game, white played here. So what's the idea with this? It's similar in that white is starting the fight in the center, attacking these black stones before continuing the fight towards the lower side. So if black answers here, white will cut here, again threatening those black stones in the center, and making various threats. So for instance, if black pushes through here, white actually gets to capture with 12. So this captures black's group in the center. White has a cut at G11 or the connection at G7. So in this variation, white's actually capturing those black stones in the center. Black does squeeze from all sides, but this would be too much. capturing these stones gives white a sizable lead. So white did that, and black countered with the wedge. So black is hitting white's shortage of liberties. So if white connects here, then black will push here, and white has no choice but to extend here. And so in this case, black gets to connect up at 6, which is really important. So this is finished off white's stones here in the center. And also black gets to push through here. So black would be able to play both sides here, and white's group in the center would be in trouble. White would struggle in the center. Even if white manages to live with this group, then the next fight would be against this group, and white's going to get into trouble. So that's how that was going to work. And so they're both trying to avoid the story that the opponent is trying to build. So at this point, white didn't want to connect immediately. So if white had played here, black would have had an advantage in the race to capture. White tries to change that by playing this first. And if black had covered here, the focus would have switched to the center. And so white would have been able to get some forcing moves in the center and change the situation towards the bottom side. And so black plays here, hitting white's shortage of liberties. And if white had connected here, then black would have been able to play both sides. So this would have been a win for black. And so it looks like they're ignoring each other, but there's actually a good reason for them to be playing in this way. And so it's a trade. So white got to capture some black stones in the center, and black connected up to stones towards the bottom side. So white's profit here is in this area, where that used to be an area that looked like black's territory. And black got this great shape here and a strong position on the bottom side. Pretty much an even trade. The game is closer than it was before. So white's cut up most of the komi. And this group is, these 2 points were Mii, L3 and E2. And white played here. So I'd call this the big mistake for white in this game. So maybe this was the losing move. It still continued to be an exciting endgame, but when black bumped against white here, the life or death of this white group on the bottom side, it became sort of borderline. So white's attachment there, it lost eye shape, and it was sort of fighting with that strong shape that black has in the center. So in that way, it was in the wrong direction, and white should have just played a kosumi on the second line. So if white had played here, it would have been a very close endgame. Maybe something like this. This is an example endgame. And white's alive on the bottom side. And it turns into a pretty straightforward endgame, which is actually very close. So, hard to say who's going to win this one. So when white plays here, and black bumped against, white could connect like this. So in this case, black's group is perfectly alive. So for instance, if black gets to play here, the Hanesugi here would give black plenty of space. And black's one move away from connecting the center. If white pushes through here, it's even sort of painful to push through here because there's going to be a hole there. Black would start by living, but there's a hole there at 006. So that's probably a bad idea too. So white connected. So the problem with that variation, just to recap, is that white's group is, there's going to be issues with white's eyes on the bottom side. So it sort of gets difficult. And white connected. So this is still sort of borderline. It's not 100% alive. And black is alive on the bottom side with moves like Q2 or P2 to extend black's eyes. And it's sort of like an endgame, only white's moves here, they haven't really, these two stones haven't accomplished very much. And white's group on the bottom side, there are some issues with the life or death of it. So when black plays this move in the center of the board, black is creating a strong shape there and making kind of an indirect threat against white's group on the bottom side. So white added a stone. And now they're really into the end game. And this was a very exciting point here, where this was the winning move, you might say. What white was hoping for, if black connects, Now this would just connect up. And white's connected to the corner, and black is dead on the side. So obviously this is bad for black. And so if you don't see this move, one would assume that black has to play here, and white gets to cut that black stone off. So this would be what white's trying to do. But black countered with this stone. So when black plays here, if white tries to connect up here, now it's going to be a ko. So white would connect here, and black would have the ko here. In this case, if black captures at t14, the corner is in danger. So there's a lot of danger for white also in this ko, when the corner can die after black wins the ko. So white didn't do that yet. This is a big move towards the center and threatening to capture these two black stones. And black finished off that. It's turning into an endgame. So there's this ko on the right side, which is threatening to happen. And that's why white is leaving the right side. So we'll see something happening on the right side here. White left a hole in the borderline of this white territory. And it's going to connect to the ko on the right, because white has established a forcing move here, which was, at this point, if white plays here, is threatening to cut here. So black has to answer here. So that makes the ko a bit easier for white to play. So he started with the ko, because if black captures here, white can use this as a ko threat. And therefore, instead of capturing first, black played here first, so that white didn't get to use that move as a ko threat. And so now they're going to fight the ko. With these players, you can assume they've counted the ko threats. And it's a complicated ko, because at some point they're going to be playing ko threats that lose points. So it's a question of, depending on whether you play the local correct move or not, the number of ko threats changes. So we're seeing that with this black move, which is losing points. In a normal endgame, black would be playing at h17. But it made some extra ko threats. And this also lost points, where lost 2 points, where white, of course, would rather play at r19, but white played to create some extra ko threats. Okay, so at this point, black is running out of ko threats, and he finished the ko. To the extent that white can win this ko too, and black had to connect. So white did get something back from that. But black is playing a bit conservatively. I'd say in the final stages of the endgame, it looks like black actually lost a point. He'd figured out that he was winning anyway. And white seems to have enough ko threats to win this final ko. So that's it, and black won by 5 points. So at this point, Go Seigen won the first 2 games of this match. So it's 2 wins for Go Seigen and 1 win for Kitani. I'll probably continue fairly soon with the rest of the games of this match. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.